Buenas, welcome to Coffee with Coco. I'm your host, Ariana Nieves, and I'm here with my good friend Bill. I was gonna say Billy, but I'm introducing him as Bill, so we're gonna be professional. So Bill is the second time that he's been on the show. He was actually my first guest ever, so I'm really excited to have you back.
That's awesome. I didn't remember I was the first guest. That's
You're
good.
my first guest.
Happy to be back.
Thank you for coming back. So you guys actually got a big briefing on what he does, how to access the services, all that good stuff. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself. We'll reintroduce himself so you guys know what he's all about for those that missed it, and then we're gonna get a little more deep into your background.
Hi guys, my name is Bill. I'm a marketing executive. I also run a financial services brokerage. We specialize in financial literacy education for families. It's actually a family business, which is exciting. And that's about it. That's the long story short.
The spark notes. The spark notes.
There
you go.
Yeah, long story short.
So I do want to get a little bit more into, I guess, how your year has been. COVID's been kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We were kind of talking about that a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, one thing we all know that you're good at is pivoting, adjusting, and adapting. So let's get into it. How have your business has shifted, adversities you've been facing?
Yeah. I think the biggest adversity for me, which is I think it's weird because from a personal family perspective, it's been great. Spending time with my newborn and being able to work with him, kind of like at my lap and at my feet. That's been it's awesome because really, I mean, you know how hard I go. It's tough. I don't think I would be home with him as much, and I wouldn't have the bond that I have with him as much at all. But from a work perspective, I think it was a really good opportunity to really kind of peel the onion back and really like gauge things from a perspective of things are changing. And I think entrepreneurship is an ever evolving process. Even entrepreneurship, if you work with a company, the other toughest thing for us was just having to lay people off and fire people from positions because different things weren't going to be happening anymore. That was the toughest part, I think. Telling people that, hey, we're going to be shifting here, and though we kept communication, and though I also put those people in other opportunities, it was very tough to lay people off because I love our staff. They're amazing group of people. So I think that was one of the toughest things. But the pivot in terms of just focusing even more energy on social and marketing more than ever now, and awareness, I think, was something I always talk about. Just as a general strategy of a business, because I believe that one of the most important aspects to a business and one of the things that I believe is the lifeblood of the business is marketing. And I think this gave us a good opportunity to kind of shift gears a little bit and figure out how to grab some new attention by educating. I think that was the biggest lesson of this year is just, so we started putting a lot of video out, just educating about different topics, advertising, financial literacy. We even had some medical people on there just talking about different things they can learn about medicine, and we had plastic surgeons come on and do segments. So I think it was although it's very sad what's happened to a lot of people in terms of losing their life, and people are losing jobs and losing housing, which is a very terrible thing. I think this time away off and working from home and being with your family kind of gives a new perspective on a lot of different things that I think can help move forward.
I agree. I think that was a great way to put it too. I like that you brought up your own personal experience with like having your newborn and having family time. That's definitely, I feel like we definitely lost sight of that because, I mean, speaking locally from here, everything is hustle and bustle. Mm-hmm. So it's like you work for $1 so that you can have a life with your family, but like actually experiencing those like small details is rare.
Yeah.
So I mean, everything happens for a reason. God is crazy. Even as crazy as it's been, everything definitely does happen for a reason. One thing I like that you touched on too was that you did have to undergo something that's unfortunate where you had to let people go that you loved, I guess you can say. But being able to relocate them is dope. So I want to get a little bit more into your network because I know that's huge for you.
Yes.
So when you were deciding to make these decisions to, reallocate people in other areas, did you think first of, you know, the assets that they brought to the table and who you can connect them with, or was it like a vice versa way?
Absolutely. I mean, I think when you work with people to a certain capacity, and which I think a lot of employers don't do, which is one of the things my father taught me, is to, you know, spend as much time as you can with your people. As he's building his building a family business over 30 years, you know, he spent a lot of time with his people. I watched him do that. He knew them very well. He knew their strengths, and he was able to put them in different positions to kind of win and gain their own identity. You know, sometimes, and I tell people all the time, don't be, you know, some people that want to be a number one might be a better number two in another business. You might actually thrive more in a number 2 or 3 space than even being in that number 1 space that you wanted to be in or you thought you should be in, which was a huge lesson for me. You know, even in terms of business operation, kind of putting that in somebody else's hands, because focusing on my strength was, you know, where I believed, especially during this time period, I wanted to pivot my energies into making sure I set us up for the next 5-10 years. And as far as networking goes, I mean, I think having constant conversation, and I think, I mean, and you know this all the time when we talk about relationship building, I never realized when I was younger how important relationship building was. I just like loved building relationships. But I didn't realize how pivotal building relationships would even be to where I'm at today. Because you know, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And when you know the right people, they can, you know, put you in the right positions, and they can also, you also need people that are going to discuss you when opportunities are around, right? You need those people that are going to recommend you for good opportunities, because sometimes that's all it takes. You know, and right now we kind of added a new aspect to our business with doing so, which is the recruiting side. So now we're actually building a team that's going to be recruiting for companies and training. So we partnered with a big company. We're going to be announcing that first quarter 2021, which I'm
That's amazing.
very, very amped
That's
about.
coming in hot.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
And to go back to the other point, I think the other thing that was blatantly obvious to us was our original business model was kind of vulnerable a little bit with this pandemic, because, you know, we survived pretty much on client retainers, being able to market to people, but we were like, damn, well, what if these clients are closed? So part of the reason we're expanding to a couple different places and marketplaces and actually owning products as a company is because we realize that we want to be self-sustaining. We don't want to be dependent on if a company is open or closed, because some of our clients, you know, closed in March, April, some of them haven't even opened, some of them are just opening as of, you know, 60, 90 days ago. So I think that was another pivot point. But to go back to our original question, you know, relocating people, you know, it's funny, it's good, it's hard to see people go, but it's a good feeling when you know you're putting them in a better position to win and thrive and do better than they, especially in this time. Because a lot of companies were shifting and saying, you know, work from home, you know, you don't need to be in the office space. So putting people in these different positions, I think was a beautiful thing. And thankfully having the network of people that we've met over the years to just kind of shift people where they could still thrive and put body and soul together and pay some bills in the process was amazing.
Absolutely. And I think just like even that small detail of being able to, you know, when you're letting somebody go, that's always going to be hurtful no matter what. But the fact that you were able to shift them, put them in new positions, like you never know what connections that person is going to make. And that small detail will hold so close to somebody for the remainder of their lifetime. Like that's something they will never forget about you. So again, your network is your net worth. You never want to burn a bridge, no matter what type of bridge it is. Like, so that's really that was an amazing bit of info. That was definitely something that I feel like I got a lot of value off of, and I would take that with me for the rest of my life too.
That's good. I learned a lot from you too. I watch you. I love your marketing. It's funny because you were the one that kind of pushed me to start doing more video and just plain video, because I never, you know me, I want my video crew there, I want to clean content, and you were the person that was like, you know what, and I picked my son on my lap, I started shooting some video on Instagram, and it kind of shifted, and that's what taught us, you know, because our marketing agency, we pride ourselves in our influencer marketing for a lot of different businesses. That's been, you know, because we copy kind of like, you see what Kylie Jenner has built and the Kardashians, they use their platform to monetize.
And it works.
And it works, and they build multi-billion-dollar businesses. But us on a smaller scale, What if we thought like those big corporations? What if we said, listen, we have a product. What if we put the product in the hands of these influencers and tastemakers and these people that can promote it for us? What can really happen? And we gave it a shot for the first time in the financial world, and it's been incredible, really, what's going on, because it allowed us to shift. And in that shift, sometimes in these tough times, I always say tough times don't last, but tough people do.
Period.
In those tough times, you kind of realize certain things, and you have that aha moment. Even though it's been, it's funny because I have, we have these aha moments, but you're just still like trying to figure it out, like, what's the best next step? And the truth of the matter is, business and life, it's an ever evolving process, and it's trial and error. Nobody has it all figured out, and I think even becoming a new parent and realizing that, it's more of a relief, because you're never going to have it all figured out. You can only make the best decision with the data you have, and that is the best decision you can make. So but that is, this pandemic, as sad as it is, and our heart goes out to the families that are dealing with tough times and different things and losing loved ones, and that's the hard part. And I think listen, if you're still here to watch this and take a look at this and learn something, you're definitely winning.
100%.
Every day I wake up with the same mentality that any day above ground is a great day.
Amen.
And the rest you can figure it out for itself.
100%. I think once people understand the concept of just being a good person is what's going to get you really far in life, things run a little bit smoother. Because that's really the basic premise of having empathy, being transparent that we're human, and we're not our job titles. Like, I think one thing that I love, this is a throwback quote from Jay-Z. It's like, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Like, and it's true. It's how you present yourself, what you bring to the table, because that's what people really gonna remember. At the end of the day. One thing that I also like that you brought up is you kind of discussed how your company in itself made the switch over kind of to network marketing and putting a real life testimonial to a certain product or a certain brand. So that's very interesting for the first time to experience that. Did that give you like a little bit of like life, seeing that real people actually,
Yeah, I mean, look, so our test dummy was actually the family business, which is hilarious, right? So my dad's like, he was on this kick trying to expand, and it's funny because he's like technology averse. It's the funniest thing. He's one of the smartest human beings.
It's a different generation.
But he, like, him in technology, it's like if you got a bottle of COVID sitting in front of him, he's running far away from it. So that process and helping him adjust it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun because the person that's taught me so much, he's relying on me to teach him, and it's just like awesome. I can't like explain what that is. But, being able to say that, look, there's companies that are hiring, we're going to be able to connect these people. And then it's funny because at first we didn't even have the finances of it figured out, to be honest with you. We just said, we're going to give this a shot because we had done business. We still do business with a company. And just as an aside, another piece of our agency that was a big business was our event marketing business for clients. So when we would do brunches, car shows, expos, we did, rollout events for like big companies like Ferrer, Lavani Shoes, like all these different companies we've done business, that stopped. So now it's like, okay, what is the next thing that a business is going to need? Well, another number one thing they're going to need is employees. Some people are going to need some, and some people are switching gears. So there's the biggest lesson for me was there's people right now that might be accountants, a lawyer, paralegal, that actually those skills can pay you a lot more in another industry that might be out of your wheelhouse, but if you give it a shot, it might benefit you in the long term. I think that was the biggest shock. We had a teacher that we connected to hire with my father. He's early childhood education, finance is completely out of his wheels. He's come on board, got licensed, and he's like rocking and rolling. Within, I would say, a 90-day, 120-day period. So that was, I think, was very eye-opening for us. Just seeing that there's a whole nother industry there that we can kind of get involved in and add to our wheelhouse of what we do. And which is, we're still learning. We still rely on, one of the agencies that we work with to get the logistics down. Because like I said, we didn't worry about the finances part. We just saw, look, there's people that, right now they're losing their jobs. right now they're in a position where their jobs are furloughed. What do they do? So right now, I think the best thing and the best advice I would give to anybody, which we've learned in the process, is look, keep your options open when it comes to working and working in the field. The same skills that you have right now that we're paying you, maybe 50, 60 grand in your current job, or 70 grand, might be able to pay you 120, 150, 160, 200 in a whole nother field that you might even not know that you're even good at or you'd be even great at. So I think that was one of the biggest lessons there. And the idea that one day it's like, me, I wake up one day and I'm just like, oh, this is what we're gonna do. And it was one of those things. So I got a call with my team, and again, it stemmed from my dad wanting to hire new agents. So I said, how are we going to do this? Yeah, we can go on Craigslist and do this, but how are we going to impact our immediate network and give them an opportunity to, as during this chaos comes in, to be able to allow them to make extra money, whether it be part-time, full-time, from the comfort of their home with their family. So now I've also helped my father revamp where all the work now is going to be done remote. So the people can not only have an opportunity to do a career change, they can have an opportunity to be able to make what they were making at work, or if not more, from the comfort of their home. I think that's a tremendous thing.
It's amazing. I want you guys to just take 1 second, because that was a lot of information, but to understand that was just $1 million worth of game that he just put you onto. And I feel like there was a lot of moving pieces to that puzzle, but again, like sustainability and the opportunity to adapt. For the people that are struggling right now, maybe in your own personal businesses, please take what Billy's telling you into account and see if it would work for your business model, because things are not as unfortunate as it may sound. I don't believe that there's going to be any type of previous reality that's coming back into play. This is the new norm.
Right.
So just being able to adjust and I guess, be able to copy and paste in certain areas. This way, I'm sure you went through trial and error and now, of course, but now you have the ability to speak on what you've learned.
Yeah. I think, and the other biggest thing, because it's funny, I think that one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give, especially parents, married couples, in this pandemic and during this shift in the world is, we grew up in a place where supplemental income was a luxury. Now, I believe it's a necessity. Having a second or third source of income, multiple sources of income, I think, is the one thing that people need to grab from this pandemic. Even me as an agency owner, one of the main things that we talked about is expanding our avenues for that multiple source of income, because when we depend on one or two streams, which was our client retainers and the marketing events for the clients, and then it's like, oh, ain't no marketing events for the clients. What do? You don't just shut down. You just have to pivot and adjust. And so I think that's the one piece of advice I would give anybody going through a career change or anything. Figure out some skill or a hobby that you have, or get. There's a lot of companies that are you can get involved for very low overhead, and they give you a kind of franchise opportunity. There's a lot of different businesses out there, too many to even name, that might be good for different people.
Yeah, that's network marketing, a network marketing opportunity. And I think that people sleep on that because they don't understand, realistically speaking, you can Google this, ask Siri, the second highest grossing business, job opportunity in this country is network marketing. It produces the most millionaires, second to professional sports players. So there's a lot of value in that and the skill sets you can learn. And I think that what I love most about network marketing, because I'm in a network marketing opportunity, I do Monet, is the full personal development around it. Because again, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. So you have to be right with yourself, in order to really be fruitful and productive. And it is I like to talk about the opportunity as an entry level entrepreneurship opportunity.
Exactly.
Because you do still have to manage and be self-sufficient. You have to be hungry, you have to be motivated, you have to be organized, you have to create business tactics, but in the same breath, you have a skeleton to build off of. So it's the opportunity to earn while you're learning is something that I feel like a lot of people sleep on. And it's something you can start with a 9 to 5.
Yes. It's those businesses. That's what I love. You can work them around your current job. I think we underestimate we underestimate how much time that we don't have. There's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 168 hours. Even if you're working 40, you still have 128 hours left. Even if you're sleeping 50 hours, you still have a ton of time left. You still have 70 hours left to get something together and do something. Even if you put 10 hours in, 20 hours, nights and weekends, early before, it doesn't matter what you do, but within those frameworks of businesses, there's a lot of opportunity. And even just what we see, one of the agencies we work closely with, we're just seeing, there are people making money in droves. It's like ridiculous. So it's an exciting time. Although it's a scary time, it's an exciting time because in times like this is where the most opportunity is created.
Pressure builds diamonds.
Right.
Period. You guys already know. So I do want to transition a little bit because you did bring up your previous work experience and what you were doing, and that's kind of how I got introduced. That's how our relationship started to build. So you were doing a lot of promotions and networking for a couple of clubs and things like that I was bartending at when I was doing nightlife. And I want to talk about your growth because even prior to, I didn't know you prior to me doing nightlife, but we've spoken about kind of like your life and how you transitioned. So I think that was really valuable. So I want to talk a little bit more about kind of obviously you got introduced to just business mindset because of your father, but how you kind of took your path, I guess you could say.
Well, the nightlife business became, it's funny, I told this story a couple of months back when this pandemic first started. I remember making my first $500 doing an event. I did a beer pong tournament at a bar in my hometown. And I remember that kind of like changed my life. And people are like, how did $500 change your life? It changed my life because that was the first moment I realized that I didn't need to necessarily depend on a 9 to 5 to make money. Now I agree that everybody should have a steady stream of income 100%, but that moment where I realized that a skill that I had developed and created out of thin air, and I guess the skill I was blessed with was a natural ability to network, but utilizing that to put an event together that I felt like people needed something to do that was fun, and just putting that together, I think that was key. And then diving deeper into that, and having the desire to one day do concerts and shows and stuff like that. As we progressed in, and we had events going on every week. But I think somewhere around, I would say 6 years ago, I just started to feel very different about the business and the longevity and the scalability of it. Once I felt like I started to see that it wasn't going to be something that, number one, I can do with a family because of the nature of the hours and the different things that would have to be done to get that going. I just started to shift my energy a little bit, and I took the same strength of what we were doing from a promotional aspect and said, listen, instead of doing this for nightclubs, we're going to start doing this for companies. Before I started my own, I worked at 2 advertising agencies. So I worked entry level at a company called SWAT Digital. I was there for a couple years. I remember I was there for a couple years. And that was, the people I met there, I still am very close to every single one of them. They're just an amazing group. And they taught me a lot. They taught me, the president of the company taught me hard work. He was he still is one of the hardest working human beings I've ever met. Right when I thought I was working, I'm like, this guy is working. So I definitely learned a little bit more of hard work there, and I learned a little bit more of strategy from the founder, which was exciting. And then that company had actually we had actually built that company so well, they had partnered up with another firm, and they bought the company. So we got to stay in the same office, we got a new name, and that was just a tremendous, just the people I met in that time period, who I still talk to today. They're just amazing groups of people. And I learned, that's really where I learned the power of networking, because even the opportunities I was being given as I transitioned away from nightlife, that's when they allowed me the key to transition from doing nightlife events and regular promotions to now putting on events and curating events for companies and curating launches. And I think that's when I became very inspired by the idea of being the first agency that not only focused on the digital marketing strategy with billboard, social, PR, that kind of thing, but also give that live experience to roll out a product where people can actually connect with it. So that's where I learned and I think I kind of bridged the two worlds to kind of create something that was new. And I think the other one piece of advice I would give people in this process is, you know, when we started the agency a couple years after we got the go ahead from the people I was working for that they were going to kind of help me a lot. They actually allowed me to start the company out of the conference room.
Wow.
Which was just, you know, I can't thank them enough.
See, when you bring value to the table, like what doors could open up for you.
Yeah, they allowed me to start my agency out of their conference room, which was a tremendous opportunity. And that was the first time and it's funny because but then when we did that, the office got reconstructed. So once the company got bought, the owner came in, he reconstructed the office, and the office is still to this day absolutely gorgeous.
Wow.
But we had to work from home during that time. So that back then is when I kind of got geared up to be able to be productive from home. So now it's a lot easier for me to work from home and transition just because of what we went through at that time. But the biggest piece of advice I think I would give people is that even if you're in an industry where you want to start something that you feel like everybody else is doing or is already out there, and I spoke about this last time about your unique value proposition, you know, you're going to bring something unique to your table that nobody else is going to bring to it. And go in with that mentality. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Don't even worry about who's going to talk about you while you're doing it. Just lock completely in and where you feel like you're headed. And before you look up, you're going to be a lot closer to where you're headed than you thought.
100%. And something that I feel like a lot of people, again, sleep on too is the fact that, you know, I think some people look at people in positions of success and they already have this like misconception that they were just like innately born with these talents, when in actuality, like these skill sets are developed. You know, the only thing that separates you from maybe somebody that hasn't even just like started to invest into themselves is that you invested in yourself and that you took the time out, to work underneath people, to understand that like, okay, I have to pay my dues, understand, be humble enough to know that I don't know all the ins and outs. Like even if it means working at a 9 to 5 to build skill sets for yourself and moving from job to job and taking the risk and investing again, personal development and educating yourself, reading more, things of that nature. Like these are all things that are developed. And it's something that every single person can do. And I feel like you're proof of that. Again, the background that you come from, like it's going from nightlife to being in the position you are right now is a huge pivot.
And prior, you want to talk about pivoting. When I graduated Kane University in 2009, I actually graduated with an accounting and finance degree. Because though I always knew I had like a passion for marketing. Very weird, like how I knew that. That was, I think when people say like, you know, what did you feel? You know, I knew I liked accounting because I like being able to control whatever I'm doing. So I want to be able to have a general knowledge because I heard so many instances where people were getting robbed by accountants. So I wanted to be able to, even though I entrusted somebody else to be that, you know, CFO or CPA or whatever you might be, I wanted to be able to look at their work and be able to at least understand it enough to make an informed decision on whether someone's doing the right thing by me. Because I didn't want to be in that vulnerable position. But when I left school, you know, I took my first job. I was looking for accounting jobs, and I think the thing that was another game-changing moment for me was the idea of how long after 4 years of college it took me to get a job. It took me almost a year and change to find a job in my field. I went to an interview haphazardly at a car dealership. So I went to an interview trying to get an accounting job at a car dealership, and the gentleman, I'll never forget his name, Carl. We still talk to this day. He ripped up my resume in front of me, and he goes, "You gotta sell." And I was like, "Sell? I never sold cars." I said, "How am I going to sell cars? I've never done it before." He goes, "So I'm going to bring you upstairs." So he brought me upstairs. He goes, "Do you want to see?" So there's the accounting offices, and these girls, there's like 6 women in there, and they're all just miserable. He goes, "These girls are miserable. Do you want to do this?" So he goes, "Or do you want to come downstairs?" I said, "I'm living home. I just got out of college. I just even started doing events at that time." I said, "Screw it." So I took the job, and it's funny because I was training the first month. Month 2 was my first month on the sales floor. Month 3, I was #1 in the store.
Wow.
And that was like one of those moments I was like, I don't even know how I did that, but I just got in, I figured it out. I figured out what I needed to do, and I worked it, and then now through that process, then I left there and actually went to an accounting job. So I worked for the Treasury Department for 3.5 years as an auditor for corporate business tax.
Oh,
so,
what a difference.
Yeah, disaster. And listen, I learned, but it was weird because when they talk about being self-aware, I think is another thing that's very key. Gary Vee talks about that all the time, and I love him. Being self-aware, I think, is once you're paying attention to yourself, it's an amazing thing where it helps you pivot. Because I realized I'm here for 3.5 years. I'm not growing in where I wanted to grow. I'm not learning where I wanted to learn. After a little while, I just kind of tapered off. I wasn't learning anything new. So I started to feel like, you know what, I gotta make a change. And then that's when I went into doing events full time. I had actually gotten hired to work for the marketing company because they were just, as I was doing the events, they're like, yo, you should come do more. And that's where I bridged into that gap. But it's funny how things come full circle because now I do marketing. Part of my clientele is dealerships. So because of my experience for working, so I worked on a Salesforce dealership. Then after I left, once I left the company SWAT, between when SWAT Digital got bought by the company called Occupy, once that transition was over, and then for intern, I was actually a marketing director for a Jeep store.
Wow.
So
everything is connected.
Yeah.
God is crazy.
So that gave me the real on-site experience to be able to actually control a marketing campaign top to bottom for a dealership. So I added that to the ability of each clients we're able to serve. So my life, it feels like this, but it's like it all kind of, looking back now, it's all kind of helped work in cohesion.
Yeah.
And then the financial literacy background I've had because of my father.
Which is a blessing.
Yeah, which is a huge blessing, has also guided me in a lot of different moments, talking about, not getting into too much debt, keeping your expenses low, living below your means, I think is, during this time, advice I would definitely give people because it's, if you don't save money, money will never be there to save you.
Amen. Yeah, if you chase money, it'll run. Always.
Yeah.
Always, for a fact. All right, now that we've talked about all that value, talking about business, all that good stuff, I want to get a little more into your personal life.
Okay.
So obviously things have definitely developed. We talked about your family that's growing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you have some big things coming your way. So I think what is really beautiful is you speak about how you just never know where your life is going, but you kind of just, the right things just drop into your lap. And I'm a firm believer in the fact that when you ask God for things and you align yourself, it may not be in the package that you would expect, but it'll come to you. So definitely these past few years, how do you feel like both personal and business wise, things that you never expected have just been exactly what you needed?
That's a good question. Number one, I think and every entrepreneur can speak to this, you kind of get to a point where you feel stuck and you feel like, where am I going next? And I think at the time, I remember what I was going through. I remember 2016 was a very tough year for me. Just because just a lot of different things were happening. And I just remember I had prayed in that moment for a fresh start. I just had prayed for something different. I prayed for growth. It's funny because when I was younger, I used to pray for money and all these different things. But I think as I got older, I realized that, with the personal growth and the development, as you develop as a person, as you do the right things and the hard work, that's going to come as you get better at what you're doing. Money's going to come with it. So it's funny because it's the reason I had such a tough time in 2016 because that was the year I chased money I was like a sprinter, just chasing it. Wherever I could, and I realized the year I chased the most money, I made the least. And that was a big frustration point for me because I just knew how hard I had worked up to that point. And I was just damn, we were still doing events, and I was just everywhere and feeling exhausted, actually burnt out. But in that moment, I just prayed for clarity. I prayed for
I speak about that all the time. The fact that you said clarity, that should just make me chuckle.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's literally on point.
Yeah.
I prayed for clarity.
Yeah, I prayed for clarity, but I prayed for a fresh start. That was one of the things I felt like I needed. And then, my fiance at the time, we met each other years back, but we didn't like date or anything like that. She wanted nothing to do with me at that time. That's why I tell people, that's how you know I'm a good closer. When you meet my fiance, she's beautiful. You know, she's way out of my league. So, when you meet her, that's how you know I'm a good closer because she helped me kind of in one of my toughest moments, kind of helped me like realize and appreciate where the moment I'm in, and stop feeling bad and sorry for myself because where I believe I should be at this point. Then her and I got together. Now we built a family. We have my son. He's 1 year old, and that was when he came here. I think that was the moment. Like I was just telling you earlier, that I realized that where I'm at is exactly where I'm supposed to be. So I think them in my life gave me multiple things that I never would have had before. But that is something I needed. I needed to kind of slow down and realize that where I'm at is where I'm supposed to be. And this is going to help me get where I'm going. Having people in a support system around me that can kind of like, you go through the tough times together with people. Because if you can go through the tough times with people together, I mean, it's the good times. It's a walk in the park. So yeah, having that family aspect, I think, it's changed me tremendously. It changed my perspective. It's changed the way I work. It changed the way I think. And I think it helps me in business because there's a lot of things that, a lot of meetings and things I'd be trying to do that might not necessarily be conducive for me, but in the sense of never turning down an opportunity, because, that's one of the advice I give entrepreneurs early on, don't turn down an opportunity, take every opportunity that you get, but when you become a parent and a fiance, you can't only just worry about yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to worry about the greater good of the overall team at home, so they can, so we can all prosper together. So I think having them in my life, number one, has been just a tremendous gain for me in my life, and I felt it immediately. I mean, then my son was born in 2019, and 2019 was one of the best years for the agency. Wow. Which was funny because we actually, with him coming, like I worked hard, but then as a group, we kind of worked the least, and opportunities started coming. Wow. So it was just one of those moments where I kind of realized that, all that pushing I was trying to do to get to where I was trying to go, it was going to happen at its natural time. So sometimes you got to just kind of relax and trust the process. And I hear that a lot, and I've heard that a lot, and I've even repeated that to people I was coaching, teaching, but I didn't internalize that until that moment when my son came and my fiance got engaged, and all those different moments happen. And it's funny because in business sometimes I find myself very indecisive, but with her I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. I knew that.
All the clarity you prayed for.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You got some brownie points after this. Let's just after this. But one thing I will say is, again, sitting here talking with you is always something that I pull so much value from. And I think something that sets you apart from a lot of other people that I know that are in positions that you're in is that you have this like innate ability just to draw positive energy into any room that you walk into. And even you just bring it sometimes. Like I remember when I was doing the brunch exchange.
Yeah.
I'd be in the back cooking.
Shout out to Caesar.
Shout out to Caesar.
I love you.
I'd be in the back cooking because I was doing the pastries. And he would come in and he'd just start dancing. Like, come to salsa dancing or whatever. Like, it's just the energy that you bring to the table.
Well, I think it's from my mother. We lost both my grandmothers in 2018. So it's weird. Like 2018 was like, it's like the progression of my life is weird. 2018, I lost both my grandmothers in the same year. And that was the moment where like, and my grandmother, like, though she's from West Africa, she was the most insightful human being I've ever met. Mm-hmm. She coached my mom and prepared my mom for her death. So, and prepared all of us for it. So she told us, when this happens, this is what you're going to do. So it was like much of an easier process, but though she didn't have an education, she had probably the best EQ, and emotional intelligence that I've ever seen. Because although she wasn't, like I said, she didn't go to school, and she just knew us. She knew what we needed to hear. She knew what we needed to do. So being in that, that's where that was born. My mother said any day above ground is a great day. So even like last week I'm like complaining. I'm like, man, I had a tough Monday. Like, because like when you're, especially when you're in a management position, you're a firefighter. You're putting out fires a lot of the day, whether it be from clients, team members, different things that are happening. So having to diffuse inter-office drama sometimes, even though we're working remote. And that's another thing that's been an uphill battle for me is just being like, I'm always fair, but I think my old management style versus my new management style, now that I'm a parent, I have patience finally.
Yeah.
I never had patience before. So that's part of the reason why I'm like, my son, he looks at me like he needs me, but I need him. Because he's given me those things that I needed to grow. I needed patience to be able to live in these positions. But I think I try to move with the idea that the notion that every day above ground is a great day. If you could wake up, if you could look up, you can get up. Les Brown says that if you look up, you can get up. And I think that if you move daily with that mentality, knowing that, you being here and seeing this video or being able to be with your family after everything that's gone on in 2019 should expose the idea that, you're blessed. Use that blessing and pass it on to others, number one, but, embrace that in your own life and believe that and speak to that. And I think once you move with that, everything else gets better.
I agree 100%. Oh man, Billy. So we're gonna close this out, and normally when I close this out, I ask you, you're inspiring at least one person to give some piece of advice. But honestly, this entire interview has just been valuable advice. So if there's just one thing you could leave us all with, how would you like to end this conversation? Like, I don't even know how to ask you a question in this conversation because it just was so much. Like, it was so much value, so much so that, like, personally for myself, I needed this. Like, really, I did. This is a lot. Like, so if there's anything, I guess, that we can end this segment off with, what would it be today?
I think everybody in 2021, the most important advice I can give while we're home, while we're having downtime, make sure you do your due diligence and get yourself a proper financial education. I think, business advice is great, but the truth of the matter is, we've seen people, go viral and build businesses off of nothing. The complication of building a business, it's actually not there anymore the way it used to be. You used to have to go open up an office. You used to have to spend $5,000-$6,000 on a website. You used to, your website is your Instagram, your YouTube. Your office is your bedroom, your living room. Your car. You don't need to necessarily. You just need a camera. But that being said, the opportunity for us, I believe, is better than it's ever been. For us to level ourselves up and grow. But I think the number one thing you want to do is get a comprehensive financial education wherever you can. If you have a friend that's in the business, let them kind of walk you through the things to do. And piece of advice number one, like I was talking about before, living below your means, having an emergency fund. I think that's one thing that entrepreneurs, parents, everybody needs to understand. I think 2020 exposed to us have, extra reserve money of 3 to 6 times your monthly bills or expenses. Just sitting somewhere, because when you get hit with that emergency or that shutdown that's happening and not happening, there's no panic. And I think that advice that my father gave me, it's what saved me in 2020. It saved a lot of people in 2020. And also realizing that we're all in control. We're not in a space right now, though, whatever's going on with politics, it doesn't matter who's president, you're the president of your own life.
Amen.
You need to take control, take care, custody, control of your own life, and that includes getting a proper financial education, which, our website, elevatebrand.com. We're going to have a nice financial literacy. We have some videos on our YouTube, Elevate TV. So that's what I spent the last couple of months curating and putting out all the information that I ever learned about my father in one space. And what inspired that was you. And also my son. I started thinking to myself, like, wow, if anything happens to me, I want him to be able to see and hear from me the knowledge that I was given over the years. So I think, getting that comprehensive financial literacy program. And again, there's all types of videos, not only me. There's, you go on YouTube, go on Instagram, there's a lot of different people that are spreading a lot of positivity, there. But yeah, take advantage of that, and again, remember that you're the president of your own life. Take control of it. Don't play victim. It's easy to play victim, but if you're still here and you're watching this video, there's a reason you're still here. There's something you bring to the table. There's some value that you have that you can spread, and some positivity you can spread to others.
Amen. Wow, this was a phenomenal interview. Thank you so much, Billy.
Thank you
for always coming through.
Thank you
Always. And thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next time on Coffee with Coco.
Hit the like button. Smash that like button.